Anyway, my name's Ben Huser again. I've been with Newdon for about, just under, going on 2 years. Project manager on the A team, so I may get to work with some of you if you are new to JustWare, if you are just signed contracts and you're getting ready to be handed off to a project team. You may get a chance to work with me or with Danny. I'll let Danny introduce himself here in a minute. The class you're here for today is called Basic JustWare Overview. So it's just that. We want to give you a glimpse into what the software is, what it does, some of the terminology that we use, and just kind of give you a high-level overview of our software. Just curious, how many of you have seen JustWare before? How many have not seen JustWare? Okay, so we probably got a good mix of prospective customers in here, people who have are just getting ready to transition into using a new case management system. How many of you outside of JustWare are currently using a case management system now? You already have one that you're using, and you're kind of familiar with software. So that's kind of what we're going to do today, this morning. We've got two classes, this one, and we've got one right after it that's Basic Overview 2. We're just going to kind of keep going from Overview 1 into Overview 2. We also offer these classes in the morning as well, so if it gets hot and you need to get out of here and stretch your legs, we understand, we won't take offense. We do teach these classes tomorrow morning too. So I'm going to let Danny go ahead and take over for a little bit and let him introduce himself.
All right, thank you, Ben. So, like Ben says, my name's Danny Douglas. I've been with Newdon. It'll be 5 years in December. This is how long I've been there. So this is my 4th user conference I've been here with, and we just keep getting bigger and bigger. We're trying to find ways to build the classroom up. So I'm going to try and wake everybody up from their chicken parmesan coma and play a little Jim Gaffigan. So hopefully you guys will find this funny and wake you up a little bit so we can dive into the really interesting stuff of talking about JustWare. So for those that are new to JustWare and have never seen JustWare, when you log in to JustWare, this is our default login screen that you would see. Okay, so right now I'm going to talk a little bit about some of our terminology that you will hear us refer to when navigating through JustWare a lot. We're going to talk about the differences between names and cases and the reason why that's important to you when you're using JustWare. And then, like I said, we're going to talk about some of the terminology so that you'll become familiar when we start throwing out some of our Newdon terminology that you'll know what we're talking about. Okay? So like I said, this is our the session that you'll see when you log into JustWare. And that's the wrong button. So when you log into JustWare, you come into this will be your default login screen. And as some of you may know that are already using JustWare, the login screen that you get can be configured. If you don't like this one, you could have a different report that shows up here. I've had some agencies that that's all their login screen. They might have 7 or 8 reports that are really big hitters for them, and so when they log into JustWare, instead of seeing this calendar and this My Active Cases by Status report down here on the bottom, it would just be a list of those 8 different reports that they could click on, and they're just hyperlinks into those reports. Okay, so up here across the top, so I've said this is a My JustWare session. This is your default session when you log in to JustWare. So let's talk a little bit about sessions. When I say session, so right now I've got some different session types that are opened up here across the top, right? So this is one of our My JustWare sessions, and I know that because it's got, for those people in the back, sorry if you can't see that, it's got kind of like the little pillars, like the court pillars and stuff. So that's how I know that I'm in a My JustWare session. This one right here, this session, next to it, this is a search session. And the way that I know that that's a search session is because of the little magnifying glass that's there. And so if so right now I've done a search inside this search session and we'll talk a little bit more about doing searches as we go through, but so this is our search session. This next session over here that is open, this is a case session, okay? And the way that I know that this is a case session that I have open is because of the little folder that's on the side here. It's similar to this little icon that's down here in the search results that I've got. So sorry for those of you in the back that might not be able to see that. This next session that I have open here is a name session. Okay? And I know that this is a name session because it's got the little profile picture of a person, okay? So if I went in here, this is one of our case sessions that we have inside of JustWare. And then this last one, this is just one of our system admin sessions. So I've opened up a system admin session to go in and start working through some of my system admin functions. Okay? Any questions on anything so far? Good? All right. So let's talk about names and cases inside of JustWare. Okay? JustWare is a name-based system. Does anybody in here know what that means when we say JustWare is a name-based system? What are we talking about when we say that? Anybody want to take a stab at it?
Name-centric, so you have all cases connected by one.
Great. Good job. Okay, so what Kay said was that it's a name-centric system, which means that all cases are tied to that one name session. So in JustWare, we want to have one name record for an individual inside of JustWare. We don't want to have that individual's name inside of JustWare 10, 15 times. You know, if we have a frequent flyer that likes to come through the system a lot, we don't need to create a name record and add his name information in every time that he comes back through the system again. We've already got his name record there. He exists. So let's just link what his involvement on that case is. You know, that could be as a defendant. That could be as a witness. That could be as a victim. You know, so we're not having to, every time this person comes up, we can just do a search for that individual and save ourselves the time of having to recreate the wheel every time the same guy comes through time after time, okay? So that's a very important thing to distinguish between when using JustWare, that, okay, the first thing I want to do is I want to search to see if this name exists in the database already. And when you're trying to add a name record into JustWare, you actually have to do that. You have to perform a name search before JustWare allows you to add a name to a case or in other sections inside of JustWare. Okay? And the reason why we do that is to try and make sure that we eliminate the possibilities of having duplicate names for the same person. Okay? And then, so then with cases, so if I come in here to a case session, or excuse me, if I come in here on my name session, I've got this, inside the name session, this top portion here is my name information section. So this is where I can go and enter in, you know, basic information about an individual, okay? So then, as well, so this is a session, right? I'm in the name session. Down here, these little tabs, this is what in JustWare we refer to as snap-ins, okay? So you'll hear us say, hey, if you look at the relationship snap-in, this is what we're talking about, okay? This snap-in right here, this case involvement snap-in, this is a really important snap-in for JustWare, because this is where you can come to see, so I'm in the name record for Cara Thomas here, okay? This is where I can come to see every case involvement that Cara has been involved with inside of JustWare. And like I said, so right here it says what her involvement on the case was. So if she was on another case as a witness or a victim, we can see that and what her involvement on that particular case was, okay? And then we have the same thing when we're inside of a case view. So we've got the case information up here on the top, and then we've got the same thing. We've got different snap-ins for entering in case information. So one of the big things to learn with using JustWare is what information am I going to enter in? One sec. What information will I be entering in onto a name record? And what information am I entering in as a case record? Okay. So when you start to identify what is going to distinguish between the two of them, then that makes JustWare that much more powerful and easier and more beneficial for you to use. Okay. Yes.
Do you have a snap-in for like languages? You know, like if they needed an interpreter or spoke a specific language, is there a snap-in that you can identify that?
Yes. Yeah, so normally that would be something that I usually tell people that that's a good one for this name attribute. So you can go in and say, you know, you can do like a name attribute of interpreter needed. And then in this value field over here, or in this code field, you can build a list of, you know, Spanish, German, hearing impaired even. And then you can, the good thing about this, you can set it up so when you're doing a search, when you do a search on an individual, if they have that attribute on their name record, it can give you a pop-up alert about that. And we'll talk more about stuff like that a little more further on, okay? And I'm going to turn it over to Ben.
Good question. Okay, so kind of have our layout here. If you look at JustWare, it looks a lot like a lot of your Microsoft screens or an internet browser, right? You've got your menu that runs across the top here on the left-hand side. You also have 3 familiar buttons there, right? An exit button, a minimize button, or you can shrink your window size and move it around should you need to. So it's very Microsoft friendly, okay? So you'll see that as we go through. So I just want to briefly run through some of these menu items that run across the top here. So if I click on File, I get a lot of options here. I can do a lot of different things like save a case, create a case, delete and merge cases, which we'll talk about. The things that show up in the File menu can be privilege-based. So if you don't want your average user to be able to go in and delete a case or merge a case, then we can hide those out of that menu so that nobody sees those, right? That's probably a powerful tool that we don't want to just give them. So some things that you're going to see in my profile in these menus can be hidden. It also, we'll talk about shortcut keys later, but it shows you a list of shortcut keys out next to the function in that menu. You can do a couple different things from inside of here as well. You have a change logon function. This works if it's a shared terminal and somebody is logged in and you walk up to that terminal and you need to log in and do some things. You can do a change logon and enter your own credentials in, and then it's going to take your settings and apply everything that's done in JustWare from that point moving forward under your login, not the previous person's, if that makes sense. Okay, so you can do a change logon. You can do an exit from here, so let's talk about the ways to exit JustWare. If I click on exit, it's going to give me a prompt first, so you're not going to lose any information by clicking on any exit button. It's going to give me a prompt and say, do you want to save your changes before closing the session? You want to save any unsaved work? Yes or no? And then it will close down the system. So I'm going to cancel out of that. The box up in the top right-hand corner functions the same way. If I click that box, I get the same prompt. Okay? If I have multiple programs open on my computer and I'm working in all different systems, JustWare can be minimized by hitting the minimize button there. Okay? Also, we have the ability to close sessions that are open. So Danny mentioned that we have sessions that run across the top there. It's a lot like Internet Explorer. When you open up new tabs, they just start lining up across the top. Same thing here. So as I open new sessions, they just start lining up across the top here. The one that I'm in is kind of looks like it's been brought forward, and it's always a white color. So I can tell what session I'm in simply by looking at the top and seeing which one is whiter, and kind of looks like it's brought forward a little bit more pronounced. If I would like to close any of these sessions, let's say I want to close Danny's search session here, my right-click button will allow me to do that. So I can right-click and I can do a close session. Also, if I've got 10 sessions open and I want to collapse everything down and get rid of all those sessions but keep one session open, I can do close all sessions but this. The nice thing about this function too, as I'm collapsing all those sessions down, if there's any unsaved information on a session, it will stop and prompt me and say, hey, you've got unsaved changes, do you want to save them, yes or no? Okay, so I can quickly collapse all my sessions down and close them, and I will always have whatever session I close from will always remain open. So if I do close all sessions with this, every session but this search session would close. Okay? Also, whatever session I'm in, I have a little black X in the top right-hand corner underneath the system exit button. This will close a session as well, so I can close sessions from there. Okay, so let's talk about reports. So reports is not highlighted right now because I'm not in a case or a name. I have to be in a case or a name in this particular set to view any reports. And we'll look at that here in just a second. I also have a search option at the very top. JustWare allows you to search many different ways using many different functions of doing that, and it's also depicts names, cases, or we can do a little bit of both, which we'll look at here in just a little bit as well. Okay, we'll talk about searching later. We also have a tools section where the individual user can go in and configure their profile, their setup, where it won't affect anybody else's profile or setup as well. So this can be restricted from an administrative standpoint as well. Hi there, come on in. And you can go ahead and set up your profile to be user specific should you need to. The nice thing about user profiles and being and setting up your own system privileges and things like that. I need one of these. Yep. As I move from terminal to terminal, JustWare will respect my login permissions and privileges and settings. Okay, so that's another important thing. As I log in one place and I do my work and I need to go log into another place, the other nice thing is that JustWare won't lock you out. Okay, so you can log into multiple terminals if needed. It will do some different things with documents that you'll see for documents if people have things open, but you can log in multiple terminals. Your user settings should reflect every time you log in, should be the same, and if you move from terminal to terminal, it should be the same as well. So again, we can control some of the things that show up here, like administrative tools. If we don't want an end user to see that, we can obviously take that away. Okay. We'll talk about views here in a minute, and we will also talk about help here in just a second. So we've got our menu items here. We've got a large blue column that runs down the left-hand side here. This is called a couple different things: Explorer bar, navigation bar, action bar. You know, some of those different terms everybody uses differently throughout the team. Just know that you can do a lot of different functions from this Explorer bar, and what you're going to see actually is, for instance, like this search menu item up here at the top has all these different searches listed here, same as these ones here in the Explorer bar. So they're just housed in two separate places. So to me, if I'm an end user, I very rarely would go up and hit this search button. I would just use this search section here. We have an action section that's here. This will change. The functions in this section will change depending on what type of session I'm in. So right now you can see I only have the ability to add a new name, a new case, or close the session. Okay, but if I flip over to a case session view, my action section changed, and I have a whole lot more flexibility to do some things from the action bar here. So save a case, new name, new case, all that kind of stuff. Okay, so the Explorer bar, again, this can be customized per user group, per user permissions. If I don't want a certain group to see certain views, I can hide those out of the way. If I don't want everybody to see system administration, we have a system administration section on the Explorer bar. Right here, I can go in and hide this administrative tools section so the average end user doesn't get in there and monkey in the back end to fix it. Sir?
Another question. I see that you have a court ID and a court number.
Okay.
A lot of times in the courts, that's the court case number. So when you do a search, is it only by the court case ID, or is it by the court's case number? Because you did a 14 dash. And
sure. Yep, that's a great question. So we'll talk a lot about searching, but to answer your question really quickly, JustWare can search on numbers, court numbers, case ID numbers, date of birth, social security numbers, last names, first names, you name it, we can search it.
So if you did a search by, sorry, just a quick follow-up.
Yep.
Search by 14 dash, it would pull up potentially this JV 14 and then the 14 dash 1, 3, 5, 10.
Yep, so we can do some different wildcard characters too to increase our search results, to expand our list of results that come back. So yeah, good question. Yep, and that's coming. We'll get to searching and all that good stuff. So, so we've got our Explorer bar that runs down the side. It is customizable per security profiles. Also down at the very bottom, this is also important here. Let's start at the bottom right-hand corner. If you're not sure what view or what session you are in the bottom right-hand corner, it will tell you what view you're in or what session you're in. So right now, I have what's called tab details open, and we'll talk about tab details here in a little bit. That's a good place to know where am I at in the system, what view am I in. Tab details at the bottom, or in the bottom right-hand corner will tell you what the view is. Would it be better if we opened Windows? Would that help? We've got it on file over here, so there's not much I can do there.
Can you open the windows?
I don't think that's gonna help.
Okay.
It's like 90 degrees
No
out
breeze?
there.
No breeze.
All right. Well, Danny will lead us all in jumping jacks here in a few minutes. so-
We'll do like hot yoga here in a little bit.
Hot pocket yoga.
I'm gonna get this.
Okay, go ahead, please, yes. This right here, this will tell me what view I'm in, what session I'm in, yep. So let's talk real quick, because I better clarify. So a session and a view are synonymous. Okay, so right now I'm in a case session, but I'm also in a view, I'm in a case view, and I know what view I'm in by looking in the bottom right-hand corner. And we're gonna get to sessions and views here in just a second, but just think of a view is a different way to see the same information. So if I want to see name information, I can actually customize different views to reflect that name information how I want it. Maybe I don't like tab details, maybe I want to create my own custom view, so you can do that. Okay, we'll talk more about that as we go. So, very good question. Okay, bottom line right here. This is called the status bar. This bar will tell you a lot of good information. When a save is completed, when any transaction is logged in the system, down in the bottom left-hand corner, it's going to tell you what has happened. So when I enter some information and I save, I'm always in the habit of looking in that bottom left-hand corner because I want to see save successful. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, there's all sorts of things that can show up here at the bottom as well, though. You've got a yellow caution bar that will show up if there's some sort of missing required field. It will tell you what it is. There's also the dreaded red bar that is the, uh-oh, system's broke, or we could have a bug or an error or something. So those are some things to look for. Also, that status bar kind of reads like an internet browser history. So if I hit these little upside down triangles, I'm going to see what my previous transactions have been. Okay, and they're going to just start lining up in order there. And it's actually going from most recent back. So it's kind of different than an internet browser, but it's going from most recent back. Okay, so business rules, when they fire, when we save, when we add information and we save it, when we refresh our session, bottom left-hand corner will tell us how that transaction went. Any questions on that so far?
So
Yes.
the tab details will only survive as long as you have that view open.
Yes, so this will only show if I've got this view open. So a couple things. I have to have, the user has to have privileges to that view, and it has to be visible on their Explorer bar. That means that they have privileges to it. And then as soon as I'm in tab details, it will always reflect down here in the bottom right-hand corner what view. Okay. All right, so do we have any questions about the difference between sessions and snap-ins? Do we feel pretty comfortable so far with what those are? So again, sessions, just to review, are the open sessions that run across the top, just like an internet browser or an internet. You're opening up multiple tabs, they're going to start lining up. And then we have snap-ins that run across inside of a session, that run across here that are going to house different bits of information. So we'll talk about those here in a minute.
On the bottom right-hand side, we have the tab details.
Yes.
Are there other standard views that you can have?
Good question. We can talk about that now. So tab details, we like to think of as our out-of-the-box default view that we're not going to touch. We're not going to change. We're not going to customize. We want that to be the catch-all. And then from there, what we do is we usually build our own custom views, our own custom sections. So we only want to see certain snap-ins and certain fields and things like that. We can do that. But we always want to leave.
Individual user?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry.
Okay.
So, yes, agency-wide, we make a decision and say, how do I want this information to look? What fields do I want? What snap-ins, et cetera. So you can't quite customize your views to that extent, but the user does have some powers that we're going to talk about here in a minute. Well, actually, we're not doing that today. I think we're doing that in the admin class. So come back to admin class.
And does that change then? If you have a custom view?
Yep, we'll name it whatever you want. You can name it your agency and then whatever the view is, case. So WT case, whatever your agency code is, whatever you want to call it. So, very good question.
And like Ben was saying, so we'll keep that tab details one available for like the admins to always be able to reference. So if somewhere down the road you get some new kind of case that comes in that you're like, where are we going to put this information in JustWare? Maybe you're looking at your current view that we've configured for your process, and so we've hidden a bunch of fields or relabeled snap-ins or something, and so you're not able to, where should we be putting this? You can go back and open up that tab details one as an admin and see every snap-in and field that JustWare has to offer out of the box, and then determine, oh, we could use it, we could put it right here, and then we go back in and add those snap-ins or fields back into JustWare so that you're able to track that information out.
And by fields, just so we're all clear, fields are anything that's like a column header with a name, right? So any column that you have in a snap-in that has a name, that's a field that we're talking about. So a lot of agencies will say, okay, maybe we don't need this notes field, let's go ahead and hide it. So we can create a custom view, hide that notes field. But just remember, tab details are out of the box, let's not touch it. So if we're missing data somewhere and we need to find it, we can always refer back to tab details and that data will be there. Okay? Good questions. Okay, Dan, you're up.
All right. So we're going to talk a little more in detail about some of the stuff that's going on inside of a snap-in, okay? So as Ben said, we've got these different snap-ins inside of JustWare, right? So right now I'm inside of a case session. I'm in our tab details view, and these are some of our different snap-ins that we have across the top for entering in information inside of JustWare, right? And so like right now I'm in this agencies involved party snap-in. So this is where I would be going in to enter in, you know, what agencies are part of this case, and then what involvement do different people have on a case. All right. So let's talk a little bit about this bar of items here across the top of the fields, and you'll have these on top of every snap-in. When you go to on top of all the fields inside of a snap-in, you're going to have these as options of things that you can do. So if I want to add a row of data into JustWare, I can click on this green plus. I'm going to come down here into I'm going to switch our snap-in to the event snap-in. Okay, so I'm in our event snap-in, and then inside of that snap-in, you can see there's some sub-snap-ins. So inside of JustWare, we're very, I guess I should say we're event-friendly. We like to classify a lot of things as events inside of JustWare. So inside of this event snap-in, we've got these 4 different sub-snap-ins that are part of that. So if I wanted to add an event onto a case, I just click on that green plus, and I can start adding a new port event or some type of event onto that case. All right. So I'm going to select this arraignment right here. And then there's all these different fields through here of different type of stuff that I could enter into JustWare if it's pertinent information that I need to be tracking on that case. Okay. This little red minus sign here, if I wanted to delete a row of data, then I click on that, and it allows me to then delete that record that I have highlighted down here. Okay, pretty straightforward. This little flip-flopped arrow. So I've just canceled that edit. So if I tried adding a new row, and I had gone in here and put a bunch of information in here, if I click on that, it's going to get rid of that last row of data that I had been working inside of, entering in information there. So I can either click on that or I can hit escape, and it's going to get rid of that row that I was working in at that moment. This one next to it, so if I had put in a couple different rows of data there, and then I'm like, wait a minute, I don't want either of those things. So if I had done an arraignment here and then another port event here, and I haven't saved yet, if I clicked on this cancel all edits, then it's going to wipe out both of those rows of data that I put on. So since my last save on there, it's going to cancel out all those things. Okay? So this, if I had a court hearing, this might not be the best example, that I knew I was going to have 6 of them, so maybe a pre-trial conference or something. I was going to have 6 of them on there, so I could put the one on there, and then if I click on this copy record, and I could have it add 6 of them on there for me, and then I could just go in there. And the good part about that is then I could come in here and just change the date, the start date of those 6 different things instead of having to manually create each one at a time. Yes?
Do you think that from the back end you guys could write in something that would prompt a user that's planning on deleting a row or an event? Because when you click on it, it's just gone. As opposed to saying, are you sure you want to delete this row? Because you're deleting an entire event, right?
Well, so on this one, you're just deleting something that hasn't been saved. So you've entered in some stuff, you click on that, it's deleting something that hasn't been saved to the database yet. If I want to delete something that has been saved to the database, I have to click on this red delete. And so like if I clicked on this one right here, if I want to delete that, it comes up. Are you sure you want to delete this current record that you're on? Okay? So this is kind of our fast remove. And then the red is kind of the, are you sure you want to do that? Okay?
That is controlled by permissions too. So if you don't want people to delete rows of data, you can take that away.
So, yeah, is there another comment? No?
Thank you.
All right. So this, right here, we've got this edit multiple records. So as you can see, I've got these,
Yeah, you know,
I've got all these court events on here. And say, so all of them have a status of continued. And I need to update all 11 of these court events to have a status that they've all been completed. Okay? So I don't want to have to go through and
in your profile.
I don't want to have to go through and click on each one and switch the status on each one at a time, right? So if I come on this edit multiple records, so now I've got that column name. So which column am I wanting to edit inside of that event snap-in? Great. So I'm going to come down here and select status, right? And then I could come, so maybe I don't need to do all 11 of the events. I only need to do my arraignments and, everything here except for this child custody. I want to update those to say that the status is complete, so I can uncheck that one. And then I come in here and say, hey, I want to set the status on all those to completed. So now if I come over here, if I apply to edit, it's going to do it, and I'm still going to stay in this screen. Okay? If I do apply and return, it's going to make that change and take me back into the snap-in. Okay? Any questions? Yeah. Yeah, so that's updated it to the GUI, and so, or to the interface, and so in order to get that save out to the database, I still have to do my save. And sorry, I just did a shortcut there, and we're going to talk more about shortcuts here in a little bit. But so I did Control-S, which is a shortcut for save, so I should have come up here and clicked on Save Case to get that to do that, okay? Great question, or comment. All right, so this right here, we're going to just talk about a little bit. This customized snap-in, what this does is this gives individual users the right to come in here, and they can kind of configure the way that their snap-in appears for them. So if they don't like, for event location to be called location, they can come in here and change that to, they could call it something else. So courtroom, say. So if they want it to be that, they could change it to that, and so now it updates that field to be courtroom. Okay. If they don't want, this parent event field inside of that snap-in, they can uncheck that, and then that parent event, I should have showed you that before I got rid of it, sorry. Let's do that one more time. So we see this docket instant field. I'm going to get rid of that one. I was like a magician there. I did it without you guys seeing me doing it, right? So now I'm going to show you the secret to what I was doing. All right, so if I uncheck that, so now you see that docket field goes away. So let's talk about this for 1 second. Like I said, this is something that can be made available to end users, or as an admin, you can make this so end users don't have the ability to use this tool, and just the admins would have access to this. So the admins may go in and use this to configure the way that their snap-ins or the way the fields are titled or the way snap-ins are titled, and they can push their user settings out to the entire agency. We'll talk more about that I think that's in tomorrow's class.
So what you're saying is that is, if an admin does it, it can be a global setting versus what the user is doing. If they change charge to charges, that would be profile specific.
Yep.
Not everybody would see that change.
Correct. But like I said, so you can make this inside of a security profile of whether or not this little customized snap-in button even appears to a user for them to use this. So that's just a setting inside of a security profile. Okay? Any questions on that? Okay, so one other thing on here. So I can come in here and I can filter. So I'm inside of my court events, and let's say, this is a big gnarly case that's been going on for 2.5 years, and we have events, like we got 850 events on the snap-in. So I only want to see the arraignments that have happened on this case. So I can come in here and I can click on this little, it looks like a little filter, you know, like our
Martini glass.
a martini glass, good. So if I click on that, I'm filtering, I can select, okay, so all my types that are on here now, I can filter, so hey, I only want to see the arraignments. So when I click on that, it will get rid of all the other event types that are on there, and I can just see the one. So when did all my arraignments happen, okay? Once I've done that, if I want to cancel that filter that I've done, if I click on this button right here, where it says cancel all filters, when I click on that, then it removes that filter that I've set. And you can see we've got the ability to filter on every field inside of JustWare. So if I just wanted to see the status, the event types that have completed, I could come over here to the status and just select, hey, I just want to see the ones that are completed or the ones that are set to continue. Okay? Does that make sense? Questions? Clear as mud?
Can you change the order of the columns? Can you put courtroom first?
All these down here? Yes, great question. Yeah, so we can do this one in two ways. So we're not going to go into this very much, but so as you go through your implementation process, you'll hear this phrase a ton, what we call the DWIML. It's the JustWare XML. That is the file, that's what drives the layout of what you see inside of your view, okay? So when we talked about, we'll take that tab view and make you guys your own view for your agency for viewing a case, where we'll get rid of fields that you're not going to use. We'll relabel snap-ins so that they make sense for your agency. During your implementation, we'll do a view for you guys, and where we're modifying that JustWare XML file, okay? And we can do that inside of that XML file, but as users, you have the ability afterwards, hey, I want to move the courtroom over here. It's just like, and then I want to move this end field over. So, and users are able to do that, but to your point earlier on your question, this is a user-specific thing. So if one of your users goes in and changes this, this is only affecting what he sees when he's logged in to this view. Okay? Question?
Say you're at arraignment and an order, conditions of release are set for the defendant. How are you able to see the data that's used to then populate templates or the order itself by using this screen? In other words, the content of what occurred at the hearing.
Well, so like you mean like so what the sentencing was?
You PR them and you give them conditions.
Yeah.
Those are data pieces that then populate an order, a template, right?
Yeah.
How are you able to see the specifics of that? Is it a different screen?
It's a different snap-in. So we've got this judgment, sentence, and financial snap-in. So you come into this judgment snap-in and you can put, here's what the charge was, and this isn't a very good charge, it's a divorce, so sorry. But then you can
Well, you can tie your event to it. Very
yeah.
first.
Sorry, this gets a little.
So instead of I guess my point is, instead of looking at the whole order, because the order is kind of a template, you could look, potentially, you could look at the data that populated the order on these.
And so I worked with one agency that they had it, so if they went in and they set a, on this judgment, sentence, and snap-in, or judgment and sentencing snap-in, inside the judgment snap-in, if they came in here and they did a charge and the dispo was guilty,
right,
or whatever, certain dispo types, then in this condition snap-in, they had their list. Hey, if he pleads guilty, we automatically know that these 10 conditions are automatically conditions as a guilty conviction. And so once you save that on that dispo, the business rule in the background automatically populated those 10 conditions inside of and added them to the case.
But then you could see those conditions on this.
Yeah, so then if you came to the condition snap-in, you'd be able to see those on there. And then also, and we'll talk a little more about this, but on this case summary report, everything that is entered into the case throughout all the snap-ins, all that information is going to be on that case summary report, just like a Word document that you can have there, and you can print it off, you can export it out to a Word document for you to have. And then everything from that case will be on that case summary. One second, I got a question in the back.
How, and this may, we can talk about this later if necessary, but how would you handle multiple judgments? So you have several charges on the case. Is it just, you can add another judgment on top of this?
Yep, so
Is it linked back to that charge?
if we had 5 charges on this case, it would have all 5 of the charges on here, and then I can go in and dispo out each charge. And you can, like Ben was saying, so you can, if there was a specific event that you wanted to say, this judgment happened at the trial, or at the, whatever, at the arraignment, or whatever.
And then just to follow up, so that's for criminal. In the civil realm, you could have multiple parties that are resulted different ways. So you could have one person
Yep.
that the judgment's against, one person dismissed, one person settled, or something like that. How do you base it instead of on a charge linked to the person
Well,
that the judgment's against?
So right here inside, so you, if we, say me and Ben were on this civil case, so I could add, you know, add
This divorce case.
on this divorce case, me and Ben are getting divorced. So right here in this name, so I could add the additional people, the primary involved people on the case as people on here, and then tie, so Ben on this charge, so if there were multiple charges on here, you know, so like say, I'm on a case, me and Ben are co-defendants on a case, and you know, there's 3 charges on the case, but Ben was the ringleader of it. He was the brains behind everything. I was just driving the car. So Ben's being charged with all 3 charges, and then I'm just being charged with charge number 3. So I can come in here and put Ben on the first 3, on the 3 charges, and then I add that 4th row and add me on there, and that it was just on charge number 3, and then what the final dispo and plea was on those. Okay? Over here.
On your events snap-in, there was a column called duration.
Uh-huh.
Could you explain how that's populated? Because every time I've seen it in our jurisdiction, it's always been 1 minute.
Well, so if I went in here and I changed this to, you know, so it says here that, well, let me add one. So it just calculates off of that start and end date. So if I,
It's calculating the duration of time it took for you to enter it.
well, it defaults to 1 minute. So if you see here, when I've added that row, it puts on here, you know, this time right now. It defaults to today and the time, and then it defaults to giving it 1 minute. But if I came in here and I said, no, this is actually going to be tomorrow, and then I came over here to the time, and I changed that to say at 10 a.m. Whoops. Let's try that again. Oh, turn on number lock here. So then if I came over here and I changed this to be like 10:15, then it updates that for 15 minutes. And what this is being used for, so like if you were using calendaring, like remember when we came in on that My JustWare screen and it had the calendar. So if you were involved in on this event down in this section down below, and maybe you got 4 events that day and the time, you know, it's blocking out that much time on your calendar. So it's at 10 it starts, and you're busy for 15 minutes on the calendar.
I have a question about charges now. The previous question was about the number of defendants, if you have multiple defendants and multiple charges. So when you go to the charges snap-in, it'll just be another view of that same data.
Yeah, well, so that's on the judgment, it's actually pulling it from this charges snap-in. So charges that are listed on here, that's what I'm going to see as my options to select on the judgment snap-in. Okay? Great question, Dan.
How do you document intermediate events? So you have the judgment, the sentence, the financial staff, which is the disposition of the case. But what about a bail hearing where you want to include some sort of reference that was the bail amount that was set? This is what happened at the hearing. Maybe it's a narrative description. How do you keep track of those intermediate or intermediary sorts of events?
Well, so on the sentencing snap-in, so you know, you can come in here and say, so here's, you know, this is the judgment for charge 1, and here's what type of sentence it is. And then you've also got a note, I mean, inside the sentencing snap-in, you've got, you know,
This wouldn't be a judgment on a case, this would be prior to a
They
judgment.
charge
to
$2.
You have a 72-hour hearing or an arraignment.
I think that would just go on the event snap in then. Yeah, I think you just add it as an event type and put it on that event snap.
I just wanted to include a note.
There's a note filled in. Inside of JustWare, so I think there's like maybe 2 snap-ins that I can think of, that there is not a notes field
It's warmer in here.
for you to
Sunshine.
add a note about that row that you had just entered in. So if I needed to make a note about this particular arraignment that I have selected right now, if I come over here and I open up that notes field, it pops up this editor for me, and I've got 7,500 characters that I can enter in a note about this arrangement.
If there's statistical data you have to pull from that, you won't be able to search that, correct?
From the note, you won't be able to get statistics off of something that you put into a note field. It is searchable.
And then there's a bond snap-in, so if the event happened and they set bond at the event, then you go into the bond snap-in and enter a bond from the event and this amount. And so yes, it kind of, all the snap-ins kind of feed off each other. When you enter data in one, you're going to see it reflected in other snap-ins.
Yep. Any other questions?
I had a question about the user customizations.
Okay.
Where is the reset to defaults?
Trying to think.
I
That's
have
something
a
we'll talk
user
about
that
later.
hides all their fields and moves all their fields around, I'd like to say.
So if you come here to settings, and maybe it's options. Yeah, so reset all user settings. So if you have a user that's gone in and hit a bunch of stuff and they're like, I've messed up. So this can either, if you've pushed out user settings to your agency, then it'll reset to what your last push
But
was.
that's for all the settings, not that snap-in?
That's for everything inside of that view.
Should be a global reset.
It is, yeah, it's a global reset on that particular view. Okay? Great questions. All right, so I'm just gonna, real quick, talk about, so inside of JustWare, if you're a mouse person, right, you like to use a mouse, you can come through here and, like Ben was saying, come over here into the action bar, open a new case, start looking for a name, create new name, new cases, click on the snap in, and then come down here in the field, work your way through there. If you're a keyboard person, you don't like to use the mouse, once you're inside of a name or a case, you can work your way through an entire name or case with hotkeys inside of the snap. So if I come down here and I hover over top of the snap in, it tells me what the hotkey is for that. So like the events one is F9. So if I'm here in this agencies and involved parties, and I hit F9, it's going to take me into my event snap in. And then if I hit Control-I, it drops me down there to start entering in a row of data. Okay, so if you're, and we're going to talk a little bit more about this, but in the Quick Start Guide, at the end of the Quick Start Guide, it has every hotkey that JustWare has to offer. I only know about 3 of them because, as you saw earlier, sometimes if I hit a hotkey, you guys don't know what I'm doing, and I do a Control-S to save, and you didn't see me do it, you get grumpy at me, and during admin training, people start throwing pens at me. So I try not to learn any of the hotkeys for that reason. I'm not very good at
And
dodging
then it's got a
wrenches.
complete guide.
Yeah. All right, and then one other thing to touch on real quick. So inside of JustWare, so like when I'm on here, there's going to be certain spots where you might see a hyperlink. So these are hyperlinks, these blue sections here. They're a hyperlink into a name record. So if I clicked on one of these, it's going to actually take me into the name record for that person that I just clicked on. When I'm viewing reports, most of your reports, when you run a report, it's going to, like when it lists the case or the name that you're pulling back the result from, it's going to be a hyperlink that if you click it, it's going to take you into that particular case or that name that you clicked on as well. Okay? Any questions on anything that we just went over? All right, great. I'm going to turn it back over to Ben. Great questions, you guys. This has been good. So Ben's going to start talking a little more about that, some of the online help and stuff.
Everything that we can
So we do have a help menu option at the top. And inside of that help menu, we have a lot of different ways that the end user can get help. The first couple there are called user help and administrator help. So If the end user needs a little bit of help on a certain topic, they can open up this user help. If an admin is working on things, they need to figure out how to do an admin task, there's the administrator help there. So let's just kind of look at let's open up the user help. Okay, this is our online version of help. Okay, so it's broken down by category, so searching, name session, case session, document management, utilities, financials. Okay, they're all listed here. These are hyperlink things where I can come in and click on them. So if I need help creating a case record, if I click on that, it's going to take me to my creating a case record section of my online help. Also, a lot of these have video tutorials. More and more of these are getting spun up and put onto our online stuff, so they're very helpful. It's basically one of our developers, I think support's doing a little bit of them too, being an account manager, is showing their screen and walking through adding a new case, for example. So, they're very beneficial. Okay, so video tutorial, and then you have step-by-step how to create a new case. Okay. Online help files are searchable. We have the ability to search. I'll just use the bottom left-hand corner search option. Here's where I can type in a search keyword, and try to find what I'm looking for. So let's see if we can find shortcut keys. Okay, when I do that, on the left-hand side, my menu is going to populate and show me all the different sections where I can do shortcut keys. So let's look at keyboard shortcuts. And this is the menu that Danny was talking about at the end of the quick start guide. These are all your shortcuts. So I want to quickly look and see what a shortcut is to save a record. I can pull up this here in my help menu, go down until I find saving a case. And you'll notice that a lot of the Microsoft shortcut keys are reflected in JustWare as well. So Control S is save, Control I insert, Control X is delete or get rid of, scrap, you know. Another important shortcut key I talk about, F5. Let's talk about F5 really quickly. F5 is our refresh session key. Okay? One thing to note in JustWare is if you have multiple sessions open and you have changed information on one session, and that information on that one session is going to reflect on another session. So if I open up JustWare again, and I've got my example here of I've got attributes, numbers, and notes, let's say, and I make a change to a code table in the background. So I want to add a name attribute. So I go into the code table, I add a new name attribute code. Well, in order for that user to see that code on the front end of things, they have to refresh their session, which is an F5. Okay? That's one of the most important shortcut keys we teach during end user training. Refresh your session. You make changes somewhere else and you want that data to reflect on this session, hit the F5. If you haven't saved data on a refresh session, you will get a prompt that says, do you want to save data, yes or no? Okay, so our online help, the first two options there, if I were to click on that administrator help, this will take me into the administrator guide that is online. So again, it's another online help file. We also have other manuals for other pieces of our software, for other applications that we have. So JustWare is another thing that we have. JustWare is an online portal that uses the API to pass information back and forth. So there's a manual to look at that. For all new end users, our team especially likes to promote this quick start guide. This is a shortened version of our 300 and something page user manual. It's about 34 or 5 pages long. We'll open it up here in a second. But it's the basics. How do I search for a name? How do I add a name? How do I add a case? It is a basic quick start guide that the end user can look at and get the help they need. Okay, it's a PDF document. I have copies of it saved on my desktop. I use the manuals all the time. I need help doing something. How do I do that? I open the manual, I do a search. So Control F for a find in this document will let me search. Okay, I can do a search. Let's find the shortcut keys in here. And we might have to do some next until we find what we're looking for. That doesn't look like it's working. Okay, but here's what our manual looks like. Okay, document quick searching, name searching, how do I search for a name? Okay, PDF document, download it. We have it on our community website. You can grab manuals off of our community website. While I'm thinking about it, we've got a New Dawn channel too on YouTube. So you can get on YouTube, look at the New Dawn channel. You can see video tutorials. You can get help that way. I know a lot of our BI guys use a lot of those resources for their own work. So that's always a good tool to use. Okay, so we've got PDF files, we've got online files. The last way that we can use some help is, one of my favorites is if I'm in a snap-in. Actually, let's go into a case. If I'm in a snap-in and I'm not sure how to do something within that snap-in, we have an F1 shortcut key. So as long as I'm in this event snap-in, I have to click in there first. And if I hit the F1 key, don't make a liar of me, it takes me right into the user guide under that section. Okay? So I always use F1. I'm in a snap-in, I can't remember what I need to do. Click in that snap-in, hit F1, and it takes me to my online section and get some help. Any questions on help?
And this is searching the entire database. So every table inside the database, it is looking at. So like we're talking about, if you had put a name attribute of interpreter needed on there, you could come in here and type in interpreter needed, and it would bring back all the name records that you had put an attribute of interpreter needed on. If you have, as somebody was asking the question about, we have the JustWare case ID and the court number up there. So you could put either one of those in here, and it'll pull up a result for that case ID or the court number. So like on this one, I did 14-3, right? So when I do that, it's bringing me back JustWare case ID 14-3. And the way that I know that, I don't know if you can see that on this projector, but the 14-3 is a little bolder than the other stuff there. It's telling me this is the reason why I brought back this case, because of it matched that part of data right there. Okay?
So when you enter in a number in the quick search, it's primarily looking for case ID.
On this quick search, it is looking at every table in the database.
Is there a hierarchy as to how it's listed? Because if you type in 14 and hours right now, you're going to get every indictment number from the year 2014.
Yeah. There's some weird ones and zeros working in the background of how that works, but I don't have an answer for you on what that is.
So let's talk real quick about what a case ID is. So I think that's kind of confusing sometimes between a court number and a case ID. So everyone sees the case ID number, and it's 14-3 in this case. What that number references is, in JustWare we have a case table, let's call it, and every time you add a new case, it just takes the next sequential number and assigns it to that case. Inside the system, it has nothing to do with anything you guys are doing. It doesn't reflect any numbers that you have, but it was the third case entered in 2014 in the table. So it's going to be just the same as your court numbers. You know, your court numbers change every year. 2015, it might be a 15- blah, 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 blah. The case ID will change in JustWare. It will be 15-1, 15-2, and it is only specific to that record only. It has nothing to do with court numbers. The case ID is used for JDA documents, reports, things like that. So that's why we have that, and that's why it's displayed a lot of different places.
Does it automatically roll annually?
Yes.
If that's automatically rolled. Yeah.
So this is a JustWare assigned number.
It's a JustWare assigned number.
Database.
Sequential number. Every time you add a new case,
right?
unique. Yep.
Is it based on calendar year or fiscal year?
Calendar.
Can you change that?
I don't know. I don't know that we've had anybody ask. I'm sure we have, but I'm not sure. We could ask for you.
Normally-
I'm curious now.
It seems like other agencies that I've had to work with on that, it's a number that we generate a number inside of the case, like here. So like if you were a court, your court number that you're getting right there, we have to do something, and I'd have to refresh my memory on how I have to do this. But we can get it so that this works with your fiscal year. JustWare case ID is just going off of the date on the database. So when it sees the year change, the JustWare case ID is going to switch over as well.
Yep, so it's unique to the database, JustWare number only, sequential, resets every year, used in documents, reports, other places. Also, names have a name ID as well. They have, it's not displayed as prominently as case ID because it's not used as much, but every name that gets added to the software or to the database gets assigned what's called a name ID as well. So that's the difference between those two, if there's any.
Which I had no idea.
Okay, so we talked a little bit about quick search. Inside of quick search, so you've got like this Soundex that you can use for helping out to try and find like a name inside of JustWare, or you got a wildcard search. So let's talk a little bit about both of those. The wildcard search, so if I was looking for somebody to say like Mike Anderson, and I'm not sure if he spells his name with S-E-N or S-O-N at the end. So I could type in, and I don't think I have Mike Anderson in here, but so I can type in Mike Anderson and go to the S and then do a star. And so what that's going to do is that is throwing from that S on, it's going to grab anything that had Mike Anders in it in any of the tables up until that point. Okay, so if I had a couple Mike Andersons that it was S-O-N or S-E-N, it would bring all those back in my results. Okay. If I check this wildcard search right there, it means it's automatically going to throw that star at the end of whatever I type in my quick search, so I wouldn't have to enter the star in at the end of what I type in. Okay, so it's automatically going to do that wildcard search every time I do that search.
Maybe the top
Oh,
Okay, the Soundex, so it kind of works the same way. If I could just type in Mike Anderson, right? S-E-N or S-O-N, and it's probably going to bring back both of those because it sounds the same, you know, with the ones and zeros, the way that works. It's going to bring back all four of those. But the downside of that, you might get some other stuff that comes back as well. With ones and zeros, it determines that it sounds like. Okay? So you might get some weird stuff back and you're like, how did it think that was? How did it think Van Heuser sounded like Mike Anderson? But you might see something weird like that. Okay? Yeah.
That search, you're searching the entire database as well.
Yes, inside the quick search, yes. Okay? So this is a, right here, this is coming back from my quick search result. So if I type it in here as well, then yeah, it's doing a quick search, okay? We also have a name quick search and then a case quick search. The difference between those two search types is that, so instead of just looking on, so like say for example, I come in here to the quick search and I know that the guy's last name is Smith. If I type Smith into my quick search screen, the reason why that would probably be bad is if you have, it's like we said, it is searching the entire database. So if you've got name records out there that say that somebody lives on 124 Smith Lane, you're going to get hits on that, on your quick search. If you're putting on there that the incident occurred on 124 Smith Avenue, you're going to get hits back on that, okay? If his business address contains the word Smith in it, on a name record, you're going to get hits back on that. So the good thing about doing the name quick search, so if I click on that, this is only looking on the name table inside the database. Okay? If I'm doing it on the case, it's only looking for case data that has Smith in it. Okay? Does that make sense?
Is it possible to do a search based on the search results? So let's say I'm looking for Smith and then this a particular case or something to kind of filter it. Is it possible to do something like that?
If I'm understanding your question right, no.
Okay.
I mean, it's going to bring you back all these results, and then this is just a hyperlink. If I click on this, it's a hyperlink into that case.
So I can't further filter that result?
On this one, no.
Okay.
On the name search, so if you did this one here, so I went in last night and I was messing around and I did a bunch of, I created like 15 name records that were all Mickey Mouse, okay? So if I came in here, and I really like this search, if I'm looking for a name record myself, I like this search 10 times more than the name quick search or the case quick search. That's just my personal opinion. The reason why I like it, I mean, you saw, so if I do the search for mouse here, I can see, hey, I've got 1 of 15 results here, okay? So I come down here and I start looking, wow, I've got a lot of Mickey Mouses here, all right? So the reason why I like this result, I can come over here, and so he's got his date of birth in here, and I can go grab that field and drag it over here. So date of birth is going to be something that helps me to know if I've got the right name record in here or not, okay? So I can grab, and this is a setting that is specific to my user setting, okay, my profile. So if I do it, it's not going to affect your name search field or session, okay? So I start looking through here, I want to find the Mickey Mouse that, you know, and if I had his date of birth in front of me, I could come in here now and type that in. Well, his birthday is on September 18th of 1985. And then I can do my search again, and it brings me that one hit, okay? And then this is a hyperlink into his name record if I needed to go in and modify any information in his name record, or just to look at that information. And let me show you the reason why I like that way better than doing it in quick search. So if I come in here, I type in Mickey, if I just type in mouse here, so I kind of get this, and I'm kind of scanning through it, trying to find. Now just imagine if every one of these Mickey Mouses had 1 or 2 cases that they were involved in as well. So I'm just trying to find the name record for Mickey Mouse, the one that was born on September 18th of 1985. So every one of these is going to have their cases listed in here also, but I'm trying to scroll through and filter through to find out which Mickey Mouse I'm looking for. So that's one of the reasons why I really like that name search instead of the quick search if I'm looking for an individual.
Was just name search on this one?
Yep, right there, that one right there.
Do you have, there's so many double last names, and sometimes they're hyphenated and sometimes they're not. You just ignore punctuation, give it to last name, you run it all together, or leave space, or you have a hyphenated, because you'll get things from, you know, a defendant that they'll do it differently.
Yeah, so that can become difficult. So that's why one of the reasons why the Soundex can be a powerful tool. So like, and another problem with that is your data entry of how that, you know, if somebody types it in and they use a hyphen, the next person doesn't use a hyphen, you know, unfortunately, bad data in can result in that.
So you have to put AKs or something?
You can do a relationship and relate those name records together, or when you figure out, hey, we messed this one up, and you figure that out, you can go in and merge one of the name records. And so any cases that the one had it associated to their name record, it will merge in and become just one name record with all 5 of their cases on it. So you have a couple of different options on how to handle that.
And that means if you do a search on any of the aliases, it would pull up that particular
Yep.
record from that one.
Yep. Okay, so sorry that we kind of had to hurry and fly through searching kind of fast there. The time is spent, so I want to let you guys go out and cool off a little bit before you go to your next class. So if you guys will fill out the evaluations, my name's Danny Douglas again, and Ben's user. You can pull them up and bring them up here and give them to us.